Hello, hello.
Bonjour Francis, ça va bien? Ça va bien, vous?
I know I pick colors like this with this, so I'll put up this. Where is it? I don't use the wheel. I use the standard Photoshop thing.
Ja. Weer een plekje gedaan. Ja, gewoon zo dat het gedaan. Die had er 3. Hier zijn het. Nee. Ah. Ja, ik ben misschien niet te houden. Of een ja, dat kan mij wel doen. Dat is leuk.
Dan heb je niet zitten een beetje groeven.
That's sweet, dude. En met Zoom erbij.
Ja, dan leg je de Discord maar doen. Ja. Dat is gewoon doen met jij veel. Dat dan vrij snel too much work.
Ja.
In Discord, dat is van de voice chat is vrij. Is dat super optimaal stellen. Ja, maar binnenkort komt komt hem? Alleen niet teksten, maar online teksten. Zal ik de link sharen?
Ja, dat is echt zo zijn dat.
Ja, ook toch?
Ja.
En moet je eens bestellen. En dan zou ik het niet dat is je kan ook de laatste mening. Nee. Ja, het is zo'n albumart met zo'n echt jazz-liedje, zodat zijn die writers en foto's van.
Ja.
Of de tekst, ja, die hebben dus wel. Maar ik zeg het, dat is echt onder op de wel een lezen als je het ja, dat is niet zo. Niets van dat. Ja, dat is echt een goede lezing, dus ik heb zoiets gekregen. Nee, dat lijkt me zo. Maar die lijkt ook wel veel. Typisch Amerikaanse messages on our Okay.
Right, guys, so I'm drawing some like a farmer, kind of like villager character. sort of fits in this, like fantasy world. I'm getting more into kind of that typical Tolkien fantasy world. Hey class, why did you change it into a human? I change my mind all the time. I might change it back, I mean, it's just like this little shape, right? For the ears. I still kind of like it. Nothing is ever set in stone with me. How did I start to paint? I started after I saw some. I think it's like after I started playing video games, I discovered this. The manuals in it. They all had like amazing illustration back then. So that's yeah, I used to be into this game called Age of Empires, and then they announced a sequel called Age of Mythology, and I saw some like drawings online, concept art drawings. They were just pencil, and yeah, I was really into that game, and I frequented this forum. It was called Mr. Fix It Online or something, but it had an Age of Empires forum, and yeah, I decided to make a website about Age of Empires. Mind you, I was 14 at the time, because my dad brought home this like little folder on how to learn HTML. So me and my sister and my brother were all like trying to make a website. My sister made a website about horses. It still exists today. We all had like a free GeoCities account. But because I did the website, I had to make graphics, so I like downloaded Photoshop and I started messing with that. And then after I saw those drawings, I tried to like color them in Photoshop. And like to my surprise, it actually turned out really cool. And then I started doing, instead of just doing like graphics, I started to do more like painting with a mouse. I painted stuff with a mouse, and that's all it all started. Painting stuff with a mouse. I remember painting this like kind of dark crystal kind of character, you know, like a bird thing with like a it was like a bird beak, and then it had like a, you know, something like this. That's one of my first drawings ever digitally. I lost it. I lost all of that stuff, but that's how it all started. Yeah, I found out that it was an actual job, and then you know, you could make a living off that, and that seemed like really cool compared to what I was doing in school at that moment, because I was doing like Latin and math, you know, more like a science direction, math and science, and I was quite bored out of my mind during school. That's my current setup. It's a Cintiq 24 HD, I think that's what it's called. Cintiq Pro, something like that. It's 24 inch. That's, you know, size. It's the only thing that matters, right? Size. Um, ja, Kevin, welke heb jij? Welke grootte is die van nu?
22. 22 inch. 20.
Nee.
Jij 23.
Sorry, I was asking my studio buddy what size Cintiq he had. He has a 22 inch. He seems to be doing fine.
Seems to be.
Doing fine.
Yeah. It's HD. Then it's HD instead of 40.
I mean, it's definitely what you make of it, right? Like most of my work that's on my Instagram you know, because I've had this one I've had for not so long. So most of the work that's online from me is all made on a MacBook with an Intuos. So I wouldn't sweat it if you don't have like the cash, you know, just get the one. If you can afford it, it's something else, you know. But like for me, it's like a business expense. So the way that the tax system works here, it's quite like logical that you get like good equipment because we pay quite a bit of taxes unless we like make a lot of expenses. So if this guy was anatomically correct, the corner of his mouth would actually be around here. So I don't know if that's better. I'm gonna keep it a bit weird for now. Could also move his eye. That also kind of looks okay. Something like that. Then I move all this stuff. See what other questions were there. Yeah, Evan, Mail, Amundsen, Justin Gerard, TV Choi. I all agree because I also follow them. I think Justin is like my favorite guy now because he works in watercolor, traditional. I think it's cool to watch. It's Lingen art. See you, Anki. So since this is a shared space, you might hear people in the background. So right now I'm not using reference for this. For not for any of this, uh, except this one is kind of based. I used a sketch from my sketchbook book as a base for this one. But in the end, I completely changed it basically. I might do critiques like at the end. Uh, I'm not sure yet. So this is something uh, I often do. Is like to unify everything. It's just to paint on a new layer and put it on, normal opacity, and it just like kind of destroys all the detail, but it leaves enough information, uh, and then you can just, kind of restart, and everything will look more unified. Or I might look around in the layer modes, what looks good. And then, for example, you can take the original one again, and then paste it on top, and then look around with this one, see what it does. Maybe to bring some contrast back. So those layer modes, I use that stuff all the time. Mainly because I'm kind of a lazy painter. So now I'm just picking out select details that I kind of like, and then putting them back in, and then playing a bit with the saturation, again with the layer modes. Mm. Oops. I don't know if you see that, but here, I mean, it's more detailed, but all of the values and colors are kind of like all over the place. And once I do this, I still kind of get everything I had before, but just less, all over the place. And if I start repainting this, then everything will be more closer, you know, because if you're going for kind of a realistic look, then you know, and with this kind of lighting, all the values are and colors are quite close together. Uh, and I feel like this is like a necessary step to get there. Yes, I'm painting from imagination. So the whole idea about this, this stuff is actually my sketchbook. So yeah, all of this stuff is painted from imagination. All of this stuff is painted from imagination. Um, but there's always like some exceptions, like this guy's like yeah, basically it's like this part of the character, like the middle section is referenced, but I draw it in my own style, and then I invent my own head and all the all that stuff. Uh, so basically, if you would find this reference picture, then you would maybe find the guy who's wearing these sandals. Uh, here's another one. It's all also all from imagination, except this guy here, which was painted from reference. Do you re-add color variation on the skin after that? Yeah, yeah, sure. It's now it's now it's on the opposite end, right? Now it's too like monochromatic, but I can see where I'm going with it, right now. So I'll probably make the ears and the nose, like right now I'm probably going to work on like the color zones. So I'm gonna make the nose and the ears a bit redder. I mean, let's do that right now. And I often like overcompensate and I work with the layers again because I'm a bit like it goes quite fast this way. And like I said, I'm kind of a lazy painter. The less I have to paint, the better. So the reason why there's, they often talk about color zones is that, like this midsection, the nose, the ears, and the cheeks, they have a lot of capillaries, like like small arteries and veins, and they, the when the light hits the skin, it sort of like goes inside the skin and then bounces off those blood vessels. And when they come back out, the color of the skin becomes more red. That's the effect called subsurface scattering. And then, so this is like the red zone. This one is red. And then this one here, okay, maybe not. This one here is the blue zone because the stubble. One, because there's like more like a down plane. There's more like down planes, planes that of the face that are facing away from the light. So often this part is more like in shadow. So that's sometimes called blue zone, and the stubbles of the beard cool down the color of the skin. And then this is called the yellow zone. Because this part of the head has more like bone in it, so it's by contrast it's less red as this part, and it's also closer to the light source, and often the light source is some kind of like white yellow color. So if an object it catches more light, the color shifts towards the color of the light source. So if you have a yellow light source, then the color shifts towards yellow. It becomes lighter and it becomes more the color of the light source. So you can already hear that this is very conditional, the color zones. If you would have a blue light source, then all this falls apart, right? If you have a red light source, all this falls apart. So it's just like a tip to paint realistic, natural skin tones, But I think it's a good tip. You just need to understand it. and I mean like bluer means also it also means like, you know, more towards blue, not, you know, because this color, you know, if you look here, this color compared to this color, you know, this arrow is moving up, you know, so it means it's moving towards blue, so I guess it's bluer, you know. Okay, this is not the final value, right? I'd probably go a bit more cool, you know. On the orc, I guess I kind of did, except, you know, because they have, you know, of course they have blue blood. The subsurface scattering is blue. So I took some more like bluish color as that, you know, subsurface scatter color. But yeah, in the girl I did the same, you know. But I made her eyes very red, you know, like she's been smoking something. So the big part about the subsurface scattering is that basically it means that the surface you're painting is sort of like transparent, like skin, like marble, you know, and like, for example, an elephant's skin doesn't really have a lot of subsurface scattering to it, or not as much as a human does, because it's very thick and it doesn't really penetrate the surface, right? So I'll draw a little diagram for you. Like, this is the skin, and you know, there's blood vessels, and there's like red, you know, red blood cells over here. So when there's like a light ray coming in, it goes through. One, it picks up the color of the skin here, you know, and then it bounces off, and then it comes out, you know, all that, all these light rays coming out of the skin as red color. And that's why they use marble as a way to sculpt people, because marble has that same effect. So it's also semi-transparent. So it comes back with when the light enters the marble and then comes out, and it has a softness to it. How come your digital paint has some traditional quality to it? It's mainly because of the painting style and the brushes I use, I think. I always use this brush, which is like my trusted chalk brush. And it's kind of difficult to, it doesn't blend like like an airbrush does. So when you like understand how to blend with it, it sort of gives you that traditional look that you're talking about. And I also I always keep some like texture of the brushes. I won't go in and like work everything to death. Some characters, they will lean they will be better for that. Like this guy has like quite good potential to do like a super detailed render, because the I'm already having like a quite a realistic effect, like without after a couple of minutes. So it's like a good candidate to like really detail. But yeah, I always keep the brush strokes visible. Like I don't care if there's some of this stuff left, all of these artifacts, And another thing is I kind of follow the way traditional painters work. Like I kind of do like a monochrome sepia tone-ish thing first. Like I'll show you another thing I did recently. Like I did this guy. Like I'm making this for like a tutorial for a book. But yeah, my first color step is kind of like doing. So this is how I start this character. I don't always start the same way, but this one started with like a pretty rough, quick sketch, and then I usually cover it up with like a gray tone, and then I start kind of painting on it and doing like the major value arrangement, It's also the time where I'm designing with shape, you know. Like this face I didn't care about at all, you know. It was just like I probably spent like 20 seconds on drawing this face, but it's somewhere in the direction I want to go, and then this step sort of like defines the you know, here I'm sort of like defining what it will look like in like rough big blocks, and yeah, this is some form painting, some you know, secondary light source here, and some more form painting. And here I'm also like making sure that my value arrangement of all the elements is like what I want. So, you know, I want the bandages to be lighter than the skin, and then the pants to be darker than the skin. So you got, you know, like three values going on. You got the skin, you got the bandages, and the pants. And then the first color step is like doing it's like a monochrome, it's like a sepia tone painting, and it's a good way to like go from painting from monotone to full color. And it's the way like traditional painters work. You know, they'll paint something in like a, you know, sepia, burnt umber, or, you know, like underpainting, and they'll add washes to it to add color. So that's this part. So this part is just like a color a color layer, and, you know, I just manually painting the color over the you know, over this one. See, it's actually not that different, you know. I just went in with like reds and purples, and then added to it like with a soft brush, and then after that I start painting again. I change the background. This is kind of like the ugly phase of the painting, where you like realize how much work still has to be done. So here I'm designing the face a bit more. Here I'm realizing that, you know, maybe he needs something else than just some pants. So I, you know, add some kind of belt there. Yeah, here I'm like tightening up everything. So, you know, the feet are finished. You know, I'm starting to do the hand, and this is kind of where, you know, right before finishing, and then, you know, this is the final. So this one is just, it's almost the same except for some details. I added like the cast shadow, which is super easy. It's just some, you know, some gray paint strokes, and I do like a motion blur on it, you know, just in the direction that the shadow is going. So it kind of gives a cool look to it. And then I brightened, like added some more color to the background, and that's about it. If you zoom in, you know, it's pretty rough. So I kind of like rely on, try to make the values like correct. So you know, so it's like a Sargent painting a bit. Like it's kind of what Sargent does. He uses such correct value and color that the detail doesn't really matter. like the amount of detail, it just looks right because it has the right value and color. That's how that's how I try to think. Of course, I'm not Sergeant. I'm not claiming I am.
Right.
Yeah, that workflow works really well for the sepia to colors. Need to test that. I kind of just realized that's what I always do. So I'm trying to be more conscious of it. Because I have to do some tutorials for a job, and so I was thinking about I sort of had to how do you say, analyze my own process for it, which is something I never really did before. Yeah, it's 1,000 layers, but just because I drew all of these other ones. Most stuff is like flattened, so I'll flatten it like this. You can see, this was my original sketch. I really design, my stuff while I'm painting and not while I'm sketching, because this looks like absolute crap, and this is getting somewhere. Yeah, and since I'm teaching a bit more, I also took like a teaching job. That's also one of the reasons why I decided to start streaming a bit more, because it helps me explain stuff. It's like its own skill. Welcome, cereal, and a house full of cats, and Tinax, and everyone else. So the good thing about working in lower contrast is that you can always there's always still room for more contrast. So even though it looks like it's drawn out, I can always, because it's not with black, I can always go in and make things more contrasted, and push things back if I need to. Question: how do you make your choice of limiting your values? Let's say you play with low ranges, but you have a beautiful way to choose dark occlusions and bright highlights. It's kind of hard to explain, but I kind of just go with what looks good to me. Uh, in a sense, like if I paint something and it looks off, like we all know what reality looks like a bit, right? Like if I were to paint this here, like, and I would take like a gray, or let's say, like I'd be painting here and it was too blue, I would say, that's off, right? Because in this case it's obvious, and then you just have to wonder, why is it off? It can be three things. If you look at your thingy here, it's either, or it can be a combination of three things. It can be one thing or it can be all three. First is, let's do it like this. I'll put it in this corner. I'll do replace color. Replace color, you can select the color and then replace stuff. If I change this thing now here, it's saturation. So it's three things that can be off, It's either how dark it is, it's either how saturated it is, or it's what color it is, right? So that's what you always need to wonder if something looks off, and that's how I usually work. And also when I'm doing portraits, it's like, why does it look off? Okay, in this case, it's definitely too saturated, so you lower the saturation quite a bit. So okay, is it too blue? This shifts it towards green, this shifts it toward purple. It's not towards purple, that doesn't make sense. So maybe it's a bit more green and maybe it's a bit more dark, right? So if you zoom out now, it's already better than before, but in reality, I would probably be shifting it towards red. Where is red? Red. Like toward orange, I mean. And that would give you the right kind of color. So that's kind of how I decide colors, by testing it out. I think it's also experience. Like basically the shadow can be any color. It just depends on the colors that are around you, around the character. So here's another example, you know. I know the color of the eye is white, uh, so I add like a layer and paint some like gray on it, like this, to, you know, but it shouldn't be like 100% gray, because you're working inside this color, you know, palette. So it's like you make it just a bit more gray to be, you know, still correct with your color palette. Do you have a brush for Procreate? No, I don't. I mean, I made one brush for Procreate myself, but I'm not sure it's even a good brush. I just used I imported all of my brushes, which is like stuff I collected from like a couple of artists. Basically, these are the brushes of Jamie Jones and Ruan Gia. Because back in the day, they used to go circle around, you know, in the back in the day, people didn't sell their brushes like they do now. They just kind of like pass them around, you know. If you were one of the cool kids, then, you know, they'd send it to you. If you weren't, you had to beg. You had to beg someone else for it. Of course, I got them. You know, I got them passed to me by someone else. And this is one of my favorite Photoshop tricks. Is basically I make a I make like I copy everything and I increase like the levels, like, you know, make them like more contrasty, and then I use this function, this here underlying blend if underlying layer, and then you can basically select, you know, what part, you know, the value range of the underlying layers that shows true. So, you know, if you pull it all the way up here, then it disappears, you know, and then it becomes more and more apparent. And if you move it like this, it's like very sharp. But if you press Alt, then you can pull these things out and it blends. You know, you can blend it that way, or you can blend it that way. And then, for example, sometimes this looks good, but now, right now, I think it messes with the color temperature of of that skin tone. So I put it to luminosity, and then luminosity, what it does is just it takes just the value, and then like I said right now, what's wrong with this? It's too bright. It has the right color, it has the it has the right saturation, it has the right hue. The problem with this is the it's too light, so it's the luminosity. So I lower the opacity, uh, you know, just a bit, and then you get, suddenly your painting is a bit more finished, and you didn't even paint anything. So that's what I like, finishing your painting without painting. And now, because we have this kind of height, like highlight value, um, established, we can just color pick this value and then use it, for example, here in the ears as our, like specular highlight color, here on the chin. Because, like I said, um, like the lighter it gets, the more it gets to the value of the color. So by creating our like lightest value, we now sort of have you know the 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 skin tone that's closer to the light color. So it will apply to all of the areas. So you can use this color to paint the lights in all of the different parts of the nose, of the face, I mean. And it's just a matter of being subtle and knowing where to put those highlights. And once you know those places, the places where the highlights and speculars like to hang out, then it becomes a lot easier. So I zoom out, especially like if I'm closing in on like almost the end. Like it's almost with every stroke I zoom out and see if it works. And if something looks off, it's always the same kind of questions I tell myself. Why is this off? Is it too light? Is it too dark? Is it the right color? And see, because I saved, I haven't used any black. So now if I'm using like a very dark color here, see how that creates that fold here in the mouth. Why not have the navigator open on the side which shows the zoom out state? Yeah, that's a good idea. I guess I never thought of that. I think I'm addicted to this motion. It's so satisfying. So now I'm gonna try to like add a bit of a gradient to the thing. So welcome everyone who's following. I'm gonna test out some eyebrows now. Hey, who's that? Fatty, Egemen, Sekman, and Trunk. I'm just gonna say the name like I think you say it. Sorry if I butcher your name. So the nose has, the nose is kind of like two cartilage segments there, sort of like this, and then it goes like that. I don't know exactly what the anatomy is, but I know it's like there's two pieces of cartilage, and with some people, they don't, you can see this separation. So that's what I painted here. I've been working on this file for a couple of months. For those who just joining, there's way more drawings below it, so that's why it's at 1,000. Because whenever I start a new drawing, it doesn't reset. The number won't reset. So that's why it's there. Because I'll flatten it occasionally, and then it's still at 1,000. So that's why. Or what I meant to say is that you're not a real digital painter when you don't have 1,000 layers. It's the secret to everything is having 1,000 layers. So layers for me are kind of like an undo. For example, if I'm switching to the ear, I'll just make a new layer, and then I can just paint stuff, and I'm like, hey, this doesn't look very good. So instead of having to do 20 undos, I just delete the layer, and it's gone. And since I'm painting kind of like quite painterly, yeah, I often repaint stuff. I am Belgian. did we get to 75 people? That's crazy. I don't know if I'll be doing critiques today. Uh, I mean, I think it's cool, but it also takes away from my own like drawing time. But I'll probably do it in some kind of form in the future. So I'll explain this little change I made now. Right now I had it before I had it coming straight down like this, but because if you look at the eyes, the face is tilted a bit. It's not a real profile, so it makes sense that you know if you look at the anatomy, that if this would be the profile, you know and this one is turned a bit towards us, then this line here would not be in this one. It would be here, right? So this would be the center line, something like that. I mean, the mouth kind of has the same problem. So right now I have it like this and then like that, but that's why I changed this line to go like that. Before I had it painted like it was a profile. guys have any more questions, you can always ask them. How are you so good? I don't know, man. That's hard to answer. Did you learn everything by yourself? I mostly did, yeah. But it's kind of like it's kind of not true because I learned from other people, so I didn't, you know. I had like people showing me stuff, you know, like at workshops and all of that. Yeah, it's all from imagination. You get all those brown tones by changing the opacity. Yeah, I'd sort of have to go back to the beginning of the process to explain. Basically, I started from like a sepia. I'll show you again with that other image. So with this one, for example, like first I do like kind of like a sepia tone, like this, and then add a color layer. So you know, this would be like a color layer. And the color layer kind of looks like this. I'm just painting on colors on the sepia version. You know, so this is like color. Yeah, you know, so it's like this. You know, if you paint on this, it just changes the color on this layer mode color, and then in the end, it looks, you know, when I'm done, it looks like this, and this would be like the how do you say, the color, you know, sort of like the base color of everything, and then I just start painting and changing stuff. Another trick I use, for example, is you have these super great filters here. It's called camera raw filter, and it sometimes does like really good stuff to your image. So let's see. For example, and then you go here to presets, and then you can sort of play around with these filters. Like I like this one a lot, the soft mist one. See what it does. You have all these nice. They're like phot- photography filters basically. But if you're working with a kind of realistic image, then it works quite well. So let's take this one for example. I just want to see what happens if I use the color information of this one on my image. So if you put it on color, see what it does. It's not that big a difference, but it's kind of nice. I can get caught up in doing this stuff. Are there any art books you can recommend to us? Hmm. It's been a while since I've used any art books. Uh, yeah, which ones would I say? Like I used to work with Bridgman, uh, Loomis. But I don't know if I would still recommend that. So yeah, the grayscale to color, we just explained that. Guess I can explain that all day. I'll explain again. So what I do is I start from like a sepia tone. Like I had this black and white image, and what I did was a gradient map. Uh, I used this one, and what a gradient map does, imagine this is your value scale, and this is colors you select. So everything from starting from this gray here, so everything that's uh, 64% dark or light, I mean 64% light is gonna have this color, and everything that's 90% light is gonna have this color, and so forth. So you can just adjust these colors, for example, and get something else. So it takes a bit of playing around, you know to get something good. I have this one. I made it for that one. I usually make like my own thing. There's some presets, they don't actually like make sense. They're not skin tones or anything. So it's just like Photoshop, typical Photoshop effects that are not catered to. It's not catered to painting, so you have to make your own. And then I use a color layer to paint stuff. I just use a color layer. So like I said, it looks like this, but then you put it to color. It's a layer. You use this color mode, color, and then you manually adjust the colors of this stuff. So I'm using like purples and grays and reds uh, to add color to it, and that's what I use as a base for painting. And that would be the next step. Is you just start painting on it with the colors you pick, and then you continue, you know, to make it more detailed, and then you get this, just like that. But now we're still doing this guy. Oops. So I'm just gonna clean this up, and I think then we're about done. We're 2 hours in. I'll probably work on this some more. still feel it's a bit too light, and that the the underside of the face could have like a darker value going up, like a gradient more. It's kind of tricky to get it right. So it's just some more playing with stuff, um, and see where it takes me. But it turned out better than I expected, so that's good. That's good. A little more of this. Yeah, that one's better. I mean, once I start fidgeting too much and not really making way, then it's usually time to take a break. So, thank you for watching. Let's go.